Yaa Asanteewaa was an Asante warrior queen. She rose to become a queen mother in the Asante kingdom in what is modern-day Ghana. When the king was captured and exiled to Seychelles by the British, she refused to hand over the sacred golden stool. She gave a powerful speech inspiring women and men to rise up and fight the British colonizers and was appointed head of the Asante army. Hello and welcome to the Global Cultural Drift podcast. Geopolitical Queen here with today's episode on Queen Yaa Asanteewaa, the warrior queen of the Asantes in Ghana. First, let's set the stage with a brief history of the Asante Kingdom in West Africa, in what is modern-day Ghana and the Ivory Coast. In the dense and humid forests lived the Akan people. Though their land was difficult to farm, it is rich in natural resources, especially gold. In 1701 King Osei Tutu united several abujuas or clans to form a new kingdom. He called his people the Asante, meaning because of war. Asante is also often spelled and pronounced Ashanti. King Osei Tutu took the title of Asantehene, meaning the king of the kingdom, organized well-standing and promoted leaders, based on merit. Local chiefs reported to regional kings, and they in turn reported it to the Asantehene. The Council of Elders checked the power of the Asantehene and even had the power to remove him to hold his new people together. Legend has it that King Osei Tutu's high priest, Okomfo Anakai, conjured a golden stool from the heavens for the Asante people, which became known as Sakadwa Kofi. The golden stool, which was conjured on a Friday, is much more than the thrones of European monarch stools. It is incredibly important to the Asante people. It is understood to represent the soul of the Asante people. In the Asante tradition, people are given stools at important milestones in people's lives. When children learn to crawl, they receive a stool as their first gift from their fathers. Young women sit on a stool as part of the rites of puberty. When couples get married, the groom presents his bride with a stool. And when a person dies, they are bathed on a stool before burial. When an important leader dies, their stool is painted black with soot and animal blood. And enshrined chiefs and kings have intricately carved stools to signify their position. But these stools are made of wood. The golden stool, on the other hand, is supposed to be made of pure gold. It is the most sacred object in Asante culture and is said to harbor the souls of all the Asante people living, dead and yet to be born. It is believed that the unity of the Asante kingdom depends on the safety of the golden stool, and it is depicted on the Asante flag. The Asantehene Osei Tutu waged war on his neighboring tribes to expand his kingdom. Prisoners of war were often enslaved and put to work clearing land for farming or mining gold. In the Asante culture, enslaved people had rights. They could marry, acquire wealth, and even own their own slaves. They could request for a new master if they were being severely mistreated. Over generations, enslaved people often gained their freedom and became integrated into society by exploiting forced labor. The Asante became incredibly wealthy, but the direction that they most wanted to expand to was south to the coast. The territory of the Fanti people. The Fantes had been trading with Europeans since the Portuguese first arrived in the 1400s. They profited as middlemen between the Asante and the Europeans. Gold, ivory, and other goods were traded, as well as enslaved people to be shipped to plantations in the Americas were in increasingly high demand. Once they were sold to the Europeans, enslaved people had no rights whatsoever and no hope of gaining freedom. In 1806, the Asantes went to war with the Fantes. The British backed the Fantes and the Dutch backed the Asantes. Both European powers supplied guns to the tribes they supported. The Europeans profited greatly as conflicts supplied even more prisoners of war to be sold into slavery and shipped off to the Americas. The Asantes were a powerful army. They defeated the Fantes, and the British general Sir Charles Macarthy was killed in battle. The Asantehene kept his skull as a gold-rimmed drinking cup. Now in direct control of the coast and with unfettered access to trade with the Europeans, the Asante grew even richer. In 1817, English explorer Thomas Bowditch visited the Asante capital of Kumasi, deep in the forest. He was overwhelmed by the wealth of the kingdom and the dazzling amount of gold the Asantehene and his people wore. Bowditch wrote a book about all that he had seen. He recorded that this mighty king had a piece of gold as a charm. More than 4 men had to carry the king's messengers with gold breastplates made way for us. We stopped to take the hand of every chief. They wore Asante clothes. Kent cloth in all the varieties of color and pattern, thrown over the shoulder, exactly like the Roman toga, and massive gold necklaces intricately wrought. Some wore necklaces reaching to the navel. A band of golden beads encircled the knee. Small circles of gold were strung around the ankles, and lumps of rock gold hung from their left wrists. Gold and silver pipes and canes dazzled the eye. In every direction, wolves and rams' heads, as large as limbs, cast in gold, were suspended from their gold-handled swords. Bowditch secured a treaty with the Asante, and for a few decades, the Asantes and the British maintained a precarious relationship of trade during this period of relative peace. In about 1840 a girl named Yaa Asanteewaa was born. In the Ghanaian tradition, children are given first names based on the day of the week they were born. So we know that Yaa Asanteewaa was born on a Thursday, though the exact date and year are lost to history. Her parents Ada Panine and May Mampoma of Ampabame were farmers in the town of Ajisu. Very little is recorded of Yaa's early life. We know that she became the wife of a man from the city of Kumasi, and that they had a son and a daughter together. In Asante culture, women hold strong positions. Although the Asante and the local chiefs are men, wealth, land, power and the golden stool are passed matrilineally, unlike in Europe where inheritance is usually passed down patrilineal lines from father to son. Among the Asantes, property remains within an abujua or clan. People must marry outside of their own abujua to prevent inbreeding, and they often enter into polygamous marriages. Though this custom is fading, a child's bond with their mother is considered stronger than with their father's. So children belong to their mother's abujua. Often mothers and children live with the mother's family while the father lives with his families. Baby girls are welcomed as the addition of new generations to a family, while boys will merely add to their future wife's family. The bond between a child and his maternal uncles is paramount, and most land and possessions are passed from uncle to nephew. Because of this system of matrilineal inheritance, and because women are just as vital to men in the production of food and other goods, they held far more power in their communities than their European counterparts. Asante women had significant rights within their marriages and legal rights to their children. They were active in times of war, working as chanters, healers, and taking up arms when the men had fallen. Matrilineal inheritance and abujua loyalty remain strong in Ghana today, though shifts towards monogamy and nuclear family living arrangements have been growing for decades. In 1863, when Asantewaa was in her 20s, war broke out again with the British. The Second Anglo-Asante War ended in a stalemate. Both sides suffered mass casualties from diseases, particularly malaria, which had long plagued European colonizers in humid mosquito-rich West Africa. In 1872, the British purchased the Gold Coast from the Dutch and officially established the British Gold Coast Colony. They set their sights on taking control of the Asante people and their gold mines. General Garnet Wolseley was sent with 2,500 British troops to defeat the Asante. In the Third Anglo-Asante War, quinine had been discovered as a treatment for malaria, and the British had another deadly weapon in their arsenal, the machine gun. Even with these two major advantages, the British only eked out a slim victory. General Wolseley invaded Kumasi, killed thousands of people and burned down the Asante's palace and the Asante capital. Yaa Asantewaa's brother Nana Akwasi of Freinokpes became the king of the province of Ajisu. As sister of the king, Yaa enjoyed great power and status in the community. She became even more powerful when Akwasi appointed her queen mother to rule by his side. She was well respected as a leader for her intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and sense of justice. Asante queen mothers or Asantehimas are the second highest ranking person after the king. They are the spiritual heads of their communities and the keepers of genealogical knowledge. They have veto power and may appoint their own ministers. Queen mothers preside over courts which hear cases brought by women. They can act as regents if the king is away or incapacitated, and they themselves can act as war leaders. After the Asante's defeat in the Third Anglo-Asante War, the authority of the Asante and his hierarchy was severely damaged and the kingdom was unstable. Civil war broke out in 1883, and after 5 years of battle the Asante Prempeh I came out victorious and re-established order, but Chief Akwasi was killed in battle. As Queen Mother, Yaa had the right to nominate her brother's replacement. She put forward her own son Kofi Tain and he was elected the new king of Ejisu. He was a powerful ruler and supported Asante I as he continued to resist the British. The colonists had put forth a forceful offer to make Asante a British protectorate as well as establish a British residence in Kumasi. Prempeh refused to give up his sovereignty, but he did want the British to help him keep out the Germans and the French, who were also encroaching on his land and illegally mining gold. He sent a delegation to London offering concessions on gold, cocoa and rubber, but the British had decided that it was time to conquer the Asante once and for all. While the delegation was still in London, the British attacked Kumasi. They demanded the Asante pay them 50,000 ounces of gold. Prempeh refused and he was deposed and arrested. Some of his wealth was seized and shipped to London, where Queen Victoria and museum-goers marveled at their value and craftsmanship. King Prempeh, his family, and his followers including Asantewa's son King Kofi Tain were shipped to a penal colony in the Seychelles Islands off the coast of East Africa. A British Major, Robert Baden-Powell, published his justification for the theft of the Asante Kingdom wealth by claiming that, once the British had absolute control, the area would finally have peace. With Queen Mother, Yaa Asantewa's son, deported together with King Prempeh, she became Queen Regent of Ejisu. With the king gone, the British Governor-General Sir Frederick Mitchell Hodgson demanded that the golden stool, the symbol and most precious object of the Asante people, be presented to him so that he could sit upon it. He had no comprehension of the cultural significance of this object and saw it merely as a spoil of war, to which he was now entitled to. But the Asante hid their precious relic away in Afinso thanks to the Queen Mother of Afinso, Queen Afrini, and refused to hand it over. Hodgson ordered his men to search all of Kumasi and even dig up the forests, but they could not find the golden stool. At a meeting with some of the Asante chiefs, he felt slighted by sitting on a wooden chair. Being offended, he demanded for the golden stool. He asked, "Why am I not sitting on the golden stool at this moment? I am the representative of the paramount power in this country. Why have you relegated me to this chair? Why didn't anyone take the opportunity of my coming to Kumasi to bring the golden stool and give it to me to sit upon?" Dumbfounded and confused, many were resigned to giving the British what they wanted and handing over the golden stool, but Queen Mother Yaa Asanteewaa, now in her 60s and was present at this meeting, stood up and addressed the members of the council with these famous words, "Now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our king. If it were in the brave days of Osei Tutu, Okomfo Anorki, and Opoku Ware, chiefs would not sit down to see their king to be taken away without firing a shot. No European could have dared speak to chiefs of Asante in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. Is it true that the bravery of Asante is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be. I must say this, if you, the men of Asante, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight the white men. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefields." Ashamed for their cowardice, the Asante leaders named Asantewaa their war chief. She led a force of 5,000 men against the British in the fifth and final Anglo-Asante War, which is also called the Yaa Asanteewaa War or the War of the Golden Stool. Many women supported Asantewa's cause. They refused to sleep with their husbands if they would not support the Queen Mother. Her army chased Frederick Hodgson and his men into their fort at Kumasi. Asantewaa laid siege to the fort for several months. Her soldiers patrolled the vast forest between Kumasi and the British colony on the coast to prevent reinforcements from reaching Hodgson, but eventually a large British force broke through, rescued Hodgson and captured Asantewaa and her generals. The traitor, who passed on information for the British to capture Asantewaa, was a man known as Kwame Tua. The Queen Mother was sent into exile to the Seychelles. The rebellion represented the final war in the Anglo-Asante series of wars that lasted throughout the 19th century. On January 1, 1902, the British were finally able to accomplish what the Asante army had denied them for almost a century, and the Asante Empire was made a protectorate of the British Crown. Yaa Asanteewaa died in exile on October 17, 1921. 3 years after her death, on December 27, 1924, Prempeh I and the other remaining members of the exiled Asante court were allowed to return to Asante. Prempeh made sure that the remains of Yaa Asanteewaa and the other exiled Asantes were returned for a proper royal burial. Though the Asante were defeated, the British never found the golden stool. Had they found it, surely it would have been carted to London and would be on display in the British Museum along with so many other stolen treasures from around the world. The golden stool remains with the Asante people as a symbol of their strength, unity, and independence. Only select members of the royal family know where the golden stool is hidden. It is rarely seen and brought out only for important occasions such as the installment of a new Asante. During the ceremony, the stool is carried in on a pillow. Placed on an elephant skin, it is not supposed to touch the ground. It sits on its own stool. The new Asante is lifted over the stool by his attendants and his bottom is allowed to gently touch the stool 3 times. Yaa Asanteewaa's dream for an Asante free of British rule was realized on March 6, 1957, when the Asante Protectorate gained independence as part of Ghana, the first African nation to achieve this feat. Queen Mother Yaa Asanteewaa remains a highly revered and beloved figure for her role in resisting the British colonizers and protecting the golden stool. The Yaa Asanteewaa Girls' Secondary School was established in Kumasi in 1960 to encourage the rise of more female leaders in 20th century. On the 100th anniversary of her stand against the British, a week-long festival was held in Yaa Asanteewaa's honor, and a museum was opened to preserve her legacy. Each year a festival is held in August where chiefs and common people gather together to honor this brave Asante warrior queen. If you enjoyed this video, then kindly leave your comments in the comments section below, and thanks for tuning in. I will be back with the next broadcast. Good day.